think that this comes down to most people not even knowing the history of the Department of Education and the fact that it was...
Oh, the history. Oh, I love it. Every time conservatives are going to get into history, it's always them like, okay, I don't really know what to say. Okay, let's go to the history. There was probably some racist person, some mean person, some evil person who started it, because let's be real, that kind of is history. And then we can use that to discredit the thing as it currently exists right now.
Never really supposed to have the power or the budget that it does today. I mean, like most government agencies, it has obviously overstepped its bounds. I mean, most people don't even know that it is a relatively new government.
Destiny has not made an argument in favor of keeping it at this point. I'm just making that for the record.
In fact, Jimmy Carter, who just passed away, he was the one who created the Department of Education. He signed it into law in 1979. And somehow, just to give you an example, somehow over the last 40 odd years, their budget has ballooned from $14 billion to over $238 billion. Wow. That is insane. But what is even more insane is that over these
why not address, I think that this funding was bad because, and then here are the things that it now funds that it shouldn't, or it's bad because it's moved beyond its legally current mandate, or there were better ways to invest in it. Like, why not? Why? It's always just like,
I know, but did he watch this? I mean, we'll see what it's 26 minutes long, and she's pretty good with providing some. I mean, she doesn't do deep dives, but she pretty much says her point. She'll even do counterpoints too.
40 years, over that insane increase in spending and in budget, there has been no improvement in American education. Just look at this graph from the Cato Institute. This is the trends in American public schooling since 1970. So the blue line right here is the total cost, the amount that we, as taxpayers, are spending on American education. That obviously has skyrocketed. Oh, employees have skyrocketed. We're paying more people. We see where our money is going. And then let's look at reading scores, math scores, science scores. Oh, they've stayed exactly the same.
I don't know if Destiny's watched Brett Cooper. I'm a big Brett Cooper fan. I've watched a lot of her. And yeah, that's why I said I haven't seen this. She typically has receipts. She's like a Candace Owens in a way, in her own way, like a Gen Z-ish Candace Owens without, a little bit of the edge. I'm curious to hear how Destiny replies to this. I don't think he watched this.
There has been no improvement in the slightest. Now, to give you guys...
Destiny, I don't know if you can see it. He's small in the bottom of the corner. It looks like he stepped into it. Let's see what he says. He probably will ignore that.
A bit more backstory and context on this department and on this issue. There has...
Okay, total cost is the... I'm just curious what this chart is.
Yeah, I know.
Schooling since 1970.
Uh-huh.
Total cost is the full cost of the K through 12 education of a single student graduating in the given year, adjusted for inflation. K through 12 education of a single student. Does this have anything to do with the Department of Education? How much, isn't the vast majority of the Department of Education funds, doesn't that go to colleges and universities? What percentage of Department of Education funds go to K through 12?
We know they pay for the lunch.
State and local governments provide the vast majority of funding for K through 12 education. 86% of all school funding. Federal funding programs for K through 12. How much of the Department of Education's budget even goes to Department of Education budget spending? So for fiscal year 2024, $161 billion went towards federal student aid. And then this is a good chunk of it, but elementary and secondary education was $83 billion.
And I don't understand why he's going down a route to try to find a way to poke a hole through the Department of Education. And I understand that's the topic, but is it not alarming that you see the costs going up like that? And there's no, let's see if he addresses that, because that's off of the general shock of the chart. And that's not an argument for keeping the Department of Education either.
So, but the majority of it, one might even say the vast majority of it, special ed and rehabilitative services. I wonder if this has to do with K through 12 as well, or if that's...
Okay, so then let's say, I don't know what the percentage is there. A significant amount goes to elementary and secondary education. So then if you're not worried about it, then we should cut it then, right? I mean, at least from that standpoint of the chart she brought up, you shouldn't have a problem. This is the same thing with the USAID stuff, where they say, well, I thought Elon was going to cut the budget, and this is only 1% of the budget or whatever they use and say. Well, I never said Elon was trying to cut the budget. I don't think that's the end goal of it. And then number two, if it's only 1%, why are you fighting for it? Why do you care? I thought you didn't care.
It's for colleges. But it seems like quite a bit of it, like over what, 60% goes to secondary education.
What's your point? Okay, then you agree, for at least from the standpoint of K through 12, we don't need the Department of Education then, right? Is that your point? What's your end takeaway?
So, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward.
Okay.
Has been no.
Yeah, that was not good. You see why life is complicated. I love the topic. I love how in depth he goes, how quick he is to research. Love all that. I love his approach to going at the topic. But then you see, this might go tied in with the algorithm stuff where I can't agree with Brett Cooper. Why? What you didn't refute anything from the chart. You look like a fool. Why?
No improvement in the slightest. Now, to give you guys a bit more backstory and context on this department and on this issue as a whole, I called my friend Ryan Grodowski, who is the founder of the 1776 Project PAC, which is reforming school boards across the country, is trying to reform education. He is a genius on all things American education, and he broke down the history of the Department of Education like this.
Oh boy, he's a
That's the guy who made the joke against Mehdi Hassan about something about your pager. I believe that's him.
Genius to reform it. Does he actually have cool ideas, or is it just school vouchers in private schools?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of Brett Cooper. I'm not a fan of Ryan Grodowski, or whatever, however you pronounce his last name. But if Brett Cooper is using a clip, it's probably a good clip. Her show is really tight. She runs a really tight show.
Before there was a Department of Education, there was something called the Office of Education. That came about right after the Civil War in 1867. And the purpose of that was just to collect data on schools and on how they were performing, what books they were reading, make a document, give it to Congress. That was basically the entire thing. And then when Lyndon Johnson becomes president in the 1960s, he says, hey, we really need to revamp education. The federal government needs to get really involved. And he creates Title I, which is about how to distribute money to local municipalities across the country, especially low-performing, poor municipalities. And education.
They always hide behind the blacks and the poor.
Fundamentally changes at that point once money is really involved. Jimmy Carter runs on the idea that he's going to create a Department of Education. This is a big campaign promise of the teachers' unions.
Jimmy Carter. I'm not.
And it revamps education and broadens the scope of federal authority in the way that the federal government works with education.
And like I said at the beginning, and many of you know this, like I said, education is near and dear to my heart. This is probably the political issue that I care about the most.
Good clip, Brett Cooper.
I feel like I have a stake in this.
As soon as I saw Destiny reacting to Brett Cooper, I knew this wasn't going to go well. I knew it. Destiny reacting to Candace, Brett Cooper. If he reacts to Tim Pool, if he reacts to maybe even Crowder at times, because Crowder will make jokes, but Crowder's pretty tight too. There's certain people on the right side he would never be able to react to Nick. That's for sure. There's certain people that maybe he could kind of easily poke holes through and see their failures. Not with Brett Cooper, in my opinion.
Okay. I don't know how that fleshed out anything or made any arguments today, but okay, whatever.
Still, we're at 8 minutes.